Diablo Volper, a powerful dark mage, was defeated and sealed away in a battle against the 12 gods. He finally wakes up from his sleep 66,666 years later, however, in the body of a newborn baby, Jamie Welton. 9 years later, with a fraction of power he once held and with the loving family and peaceful environment he is now surrounded by, Jamie plans to exact revenge against the 12 gods that had sealed him away.
The story begins when Jamie Welton wakes up from a horrible dream. He is the Earl household's firstborn child and heir to the Seldom Kingdom. He recalls the time when he first opened his eyes. His parents were very happy to see him. His mother says he has the same facial features as his father. He has lived for 9 years as a young noble son to loving parents. He has a feeling it will be a tiresome day today again. His nanny comes to see him and says he should be getting dressed as the master and the lady are waiting for him. She calls him a young master. Then she takes him with her to the dining table where everyone is waiting for him. His mother says to his father that their babies are just too adorable. They must have gotten their cute looks from their father. His mother, Sears Bell Welton, is the sole daughter of the great Bell household. His father, Earl Argina Welton, is one of the only 5 sword masters within the kingdom. He serves Sarah Welton's favorite food to her. She is his only sister. After breakfast, he again goes to his room and takes some rest. He says his current powers are so damnably weak, although his power is still at this level, because dark magic is not practiced in this era. Time is absolutely on his side. Nenny arrives and says it is story time with the lady. He then goes to listen to the story. Mother tells them the story of Heinz the Great Mage. Then he goes to the library and reads books. When he comes out of the library, he sees an old man with a tremendous amount of mana. He must be at least a rank 7 mage according to him. An old man also observes and becomes surprised that a 9-year-old child has too much mana. Earl Argina Welton arrives there. Old man observes this kid is acting innocent in front of his father. Earl Argina welcomes an old man, Marquis Rimmel, who is a rank 8 great mage and is renowned as the most powerful mage in the entire world. Marquis tells him that he doesn't know much about his son and also declines his request to take him as his pupil. When Earl Argino asks the reason for this, Marquis says he is refusing to take him as his pupil because he cannot handle him. He says earlier when he cast a spell on him, he was completely appalled at how he was looking straight at the spell coming at him. Marquis further says he does not need a teacher. He is a phenomenon. He will develop to be a complete mage on his own and may even become a rank 9 mage that has only existed in the legends. Earl Argino becomes surprised that his son has the potential to become a legendary rank 9 mage. Marquis also says that the magical society that the entire world will soon be affected by what is to come. Then he gifted Jamie a book of magic and says the mana breathing technique he used is outdated, so he is given this book as a gift so that he can learn more. That book holds secrets to the mana breathing technique he created by himself, and Jamie is the first person to get this book from him. Mana breathing is oral breathing through the lungs, allowing the user to absorb and gather mana in the heart. It is known to be the most efficient method, although its limitations on the amount are a big disadvantage. The next day, when Earl Argino comes to his room, he becomes surprised that his little boy has too much potential as the mana is gushing from within his body. He orders Nanny to leave him be the entire day and does have the staff stand by, however, since he comes outside anytime. Later on, when Jamie comes out of that state, he thinks breaking down mana while moving was difficult at first, as it was an action out of the ordinary. But now that he is used to it, it's a piece of cake. Then he goes to see his father, and when he arrives there, he sees a man going outside after having a meeting with his father. He says he knows this crescent moon symbol in a yellow sphere of his hoodie and could feel the dirty Vicario powers stemming out of his old flesh. He becomes furious and says how dare Zenith attempt to set foot in his land. He becomes astonished that why his father trying to establish faith in the estate all of a sudden and decides to investigate it. His father says if he wishes to stop studying magic, he may choose to do so at any time. However, as long as he is passionate about it, he will be supported by all means, but he says he will never quit it. Earl Argino becomes happy with his answer and thinks he could feel that Jamie keeps absorbing more and more mana, in addition to the magical energy stored in his entire body. When he puts his hand on Jamie's head, he feels some kind of creature. He says it is something sphere in shape. On asking, Jamie says father cannot see it as it was secretly created by him and was completely under the effect of the invisibility spell. He has named it as Black. His father appreciates him and says he is happily shocked by his talent. On the other side, a sub-executive of the criminal organization Reborn, Philip, and a member of this organization Jans are talking about their boss and saying he is simply lining his own pote at the expense of half of the organization. Earl Argino lets criminal bands get away with a lot of things as long as they don't cross the line in heist. But human trafficking is an act of crushing the line, let alone crossing it. They realize someone is listening to their talk secretly. Jamie appears there and says they were talking about something interesting and he would like to hear that. When they tell him, he says human trafficking is the type of crime father abhors the most. He says it will be a tumultuous night and orders them to run to the Earl household at once and reveal every detail of the plan. Then suddenly, more members of the criminal organization Reborn arrive there. A sub-executive of the organization, Hanny, says Jamie to hand over those two members back to him. When he allows taking their people, they then attack him. Jamie defends and then tells Hanny that the mental toughness of a human being deteriorates at a tremendous rate at the sight of a being more powerful than he. That's why he also loves toying with the brain of someone weaker than he is, so he takes Hanny down so easily. Other people say he is a monster. Jamie then holds his hair and says to answer all the questions. When Hanny tells him that his boss wanted little children, Jamie concludes that he didn't have any new information. This is only a waste of time. He can notify the father of the human trafficking operation through those two guys. Then he says it's been a while since he last used necromancy. Necromancy is the power to reanimate and control the dead. Although it is similar to raising the dead, it is not the same. It's because the dead reanimated through necromancy is no longer a living creature. It is going against the heavenly will and defying the law of nature. He says both of them will be his loyal servants from now on and live life beyond death. They say they are at his command from now, master. After some time, he realizes that they will be of no use to me like this. They won't even be able to carry out everyday actions such as going to a restaurant, let alone infiltrating the Temple of Zenith while fuming smoke like this. But they bowed in front of him, so they decided to grant them new identities. He named them Azar Jans and Riza Philip. He knows they will be confused for a while, so he should give them some time until they get the hang of the situation. He knows as long as the contract is still in place, their souls are his. That is the nature of dark magic. They call him a demon king, but he says he is not that, but a dark mage that once attempted to slay the gods. Then he assigns them two tasks. First is to keep eye on the faith in Zenith and gather information, and the second is to find and bring someone that knows quite a bit about this human trafficking operation. They say his commands must absolutely be obeyed and then go. Jamie also comes back and says he has tightened the bond of subordination. There will be no disobedience. Father will then take care of the rest of the human trafficking case naturally. When he reaches home, he goes to his room and takes some rest. He says things will get quite busy now. There goes his relaxed and laid-back way of life after reincarnation. On the other side, Azar Jans comes to this old place and asks about the big boss. One of his fellows becomes surprised that how can he still be alive when Hanny went out to kill both of them by himself. Jans hit a punch on his face and again asks about the boss, but he says he doesn't know of his whereabouts either. Phil believes there is a high chance the boss would know about the faith in Zenith since he gets reports on pretty much everything that happens within the city. Their fellow says as the boss likes women and drinking, so they may spot him in one of the pubs that they manage. Jans hit him again and says they might as well bring him over to the master to be the whistleblower. They took him and hide someplace. When Jamie wakes up the next morning, he joins his family at the dining table. Jamie is being informed that they are going to the ball tomorrow, a large-scale ball zero hosted by Earl Simon and Earl Welton. Most nobles belonging to the eastern part of the kingdom seldom must attend. Sylvie is also going with them, Mother says. After that, he comes to meet Riza and Azar and asks about the given tasks. They say they have no information about the faith in Zenith as of yet. Their order was only very recently established, so it would be difficult to gather useful information within a day, even for an executive of Reborn. When he asks about another task, they say they bring their fellow here. This scum knew of Hanny's plan to murder them. He is a perfect insider then, but he says he doesn't know anything. But if they set him free, he will find where the boss is. Just let him go unharmed. Jamie asks him to head to the Earl's household once and report the activities of his organization and then asks Azard and Ryza to leave the city and hide somewhere safe. He says his father will obliterate the gang of Reborn from the face of the world, and so the existence of two members abandoned by their organization will be forgotten easily amid the chaos. He then comes back home. That night, the Welton household was in a great uproar. An executive of Reborn, a sizable criminal organization based in Heist, had blown the whistle. In response, the Earl had to postpone his departure until he took care of this issue. The next day, Jamie, along with his mother and sister, starts a journey to the ball. When he says Reason is indeed amazing, his mother tells him it is the largest city of commerce in the kingdom. The biggest contributor to the wealth of the kingdom of Selvum is the city of Reason after all. Jamie says his heart is going pit-a-pat because he is so excited about meeting Earl Simon. His mother tells him that Earl Simon is a remarkable person. He became a rank 7 great mage when he was just around Daddy's age. He is also one of the 2 most prominent nobles in the eastern region and the Lord of Reason. His magic resembles a beautiful red lotus flower, hence the nickname Red Lotus Mage. When they reach there, they are welcomed by a man who escorted them to the castle. After taking a rest for a time, they get ready to meet with other people. When Sears Belle Welton gets ready, 2 servants praise her beauty. After that, they all go to the ballroom of Earl Simon's castle. Riel Van Hare, a humble servant in charge of administrative duties in the Reason estate, welcomes everyone to the ball hosted by the Simon household and asks everyone to be seated in their designated seats. Earl Simon then arrives and also welcomes guests. When he asks about Earl Welton, Sears Belle says he would arrive tonight as he had to take care of some business back at the estate. Then she introduces her children to him. When Simon leaves the ballroom and joins his family at the dining table, his son asks him about Jamie Welton. Simon's wife asks his son to try to maintain a good relationship with him as they have been in alliance with the Weltons for a long time now. Son says he will do that, but from inside, he has no intention of befriending a twerp like him at all. On the other side, Jamie is also advised by his mother to make a lot of friends, but Jamie plans to make use of this alone time. Simon believes that Jamie must be quite talented in doing business as well as magic. Looking at signs of having developed his talents to the maximum like this, Jamie finds a quiet place, so he goes there. While moving, he is stopped by a girl who appears from behind suddenly. She introduces herself as Ash Ballet, the second eldest daughter to the Ballet household and an elementalist. Elementalist is a term referring to casters that have signed a contract and are regarded so highly that they can be given the barons just for being elementalists. When she asks about his identity, he introduces himself as heir to the Welton household. On the other side, Earl Argino scolds a man for running a human trafficking operation on his land and orders him to hang him tomorrow. Then he gets ready for departure to the ball. When Simon's daughter wishes to make him a friend, Jamie says to look for someone else, but he doesn't make friends. She says he is so mean and goes away. Jamie thinks having friends or caring for others, that's a quick way to lose objectivity. When he comes back, he is stopped by the son of Earl Simon, who says as Jamie, and he will be the most prominent noble in the eastern region in the future, so they should start building their friendship at an early age. When Jamie says he is not interested in his offer, he becomes furious and says first he will crush him and his magi, so that Jamie will have no choice but to become his subordinate. He then uses an artifact of illusion, but Jamie breaks his spell and fights back. From his attacks, they all get injured. Simon's son becomes astonished at who taught him magic like that, as he has so many powers. At night, when Earl Argino arrives there, Simon greets him personally. Then they go inside and discuss the meeting earlier at the ball. Simon says Earl's son is a child of remarkable talent. In fact, he is literally wondrous. When Earl asks him does he seem a little gifted in his eyes too, Simon says he is overloaded with talent. Earl Argino tells him that he says the same thing Marcus Rimmel has said. He further tells him that even Marquis declined to take him as his pupil. Simon says that is not surprising, as his boy is a genius of unparalleled talent. He will develop on his own and will eventually challenge himself to become a rank 9 mage, which exists only in legends. Simon says further that humans are too weak, although they are said to have built a wonderful civilization. As a matter of fact, compared to dragons, high elves, or lands, human mages are too vulnerable. Mankind is currently barely able to maintain the balance only thanks to sword masters like Earl. But if there was a rank 9 mage, even dragons, the most powerful magical creatures, would not scorn them. Simon strongly wishes for humans to be the master race of this world. Then he says Earl to take some rest and that he will see him again tomorrow. After that, Earl comes to Jamie's room, finds him asleep, and says he is concerned to know that Jamie has been superfluously gifted. The next morning, when Jamie is sitting in the ballroom, Ash Ballet comes. James says he is leaving. He has no intention of being in her company. Rebecca Ballet, the eldest daughter of the Ballet household, also arrives there. He becomes shocked to see her because she was Jane in her past life and was the girl whom Jamie had loved a lot in his previous life. Suddenly, Simon's son also comes there and says now Jamie can't escape from his attack. He uses a Phoenix Wraith spell, which is a rank 6 spell created by his father only. He believes it is not something a puny geek like Jamie can nullify. Their parents arrive there soon. Earl Argano says it's enough now. Everything will be alright. Simon appreciates the way Jamie defends that spell and says although that spell was only at about half of the original power, thanks to Alf's magical incompetence. Otherwise, the ballroom would have been incinerated to ashes. When Simon's wife blames Jamie for hurting his son, Sir Bell says it was Alf that attacked first. He picked a fight with Jamie and cast an offensive spell against him through the artifact. Simon apologizes to Lady Welton for this and also offers his sincere apologies to everyone there, and then asks them to take a good night's rest. When they go inside, Lady Simon says he should have been on his side even if he was in the wrong first. Simon scolds his sons for doing this and says his rash reactions would have had in the entire kingdom, let alone the eastern region. Son says he just wanted to teach that punk a lesson. On asking, he also tells his father that his brother, Lennon, gave him an artifact that contained the Phoenix Wraith spell. When Lennon comes, he says he gave it to his brother because it was hard for him to see his brother get outmaneuvered by a little punk like Jamie. Simon says as both of them probably have already felt that they are the least of his concerns. The reason for this is that they do not possess the talent he desires from his children. However, that doesn't mean he is not well aware of their intentions. He then says if they truly want his recognition, instead of doing such idiotic things like this, prove that his blood runs in their veins. Then he leaves by saying that make sure the first thing they do tomorrow is apologize to Jamie Welton. On the other side, Sir Bell thinks although the spell Jamie cast at Alf was really intended to kill him if the power within the artifact was released in full, she can't forgive him even though Earl Simon has apologized. When she goes, Jamie wakes up and says he understands his parents' concerns. He did lose control of himself after seeing Jane. It is hard to believe for him that she has incarnated too. Maybe reincarnation isn't so uncommon, judging from how he came back to life after all these years. That would explain her reincarnation. However, she did not recognize him, meaning she has no memory of her past life. Unlike him, he decides to talk to her in person. The next day, when many of the guests have left already, he runs to meet her before departure. He finds her on the lawn. She asks him if everything is alright as he seems troubled. Jamie says everything is alright now. Rebecca says her father always said troubles go away if these are shared with people around. From their discussion, Jamie realizes that she is not the same. She is a different person now. After some time, Jamie says goodbye and comes back. On his way back, he realizes that he forgot to tell her that she should call him Jamie instead of addressing him as young master. It's a little difficult to approach Rebecca in a casual way somehow, perhaps because she seems mature. When he reaches the castle, he finds sons of Simon's waiting for him. When Alf, the younger son, says sorry to him, Jamie understands they came to apologize at Earl Simon's orders. He then introduces his brother, Lennon, and says it was he who gave him the magical artifact. Jamie thinks Lennon has so much talent, much better than that of Alf, and he appears to have the intelligence of a human. He also says that this son didn't even show up in the scene during the scuffle yesterday. It looks like he treats Jamie and Alf alike with contempt, probably everyone else besides his father in a condescending manner. There is a potential for him to cause a bit of trouble later on. Then he says to Alf that it looks like he will have a tough time fighting for his position in the household. Jamie asks about Lennon's opinion on it, but he replies rudely, it's not his business. Soon he realizes his father has said he won't give a second chance to them, so he bows down and again apologizes to Jamie. The next day, when they were ready to leave, Simon tells Jamie that he seems a bit unsettled. But he says not at all. In fact, he is happy that he will be returning home to get some rest. Simon says he may stay longer if he desires, but he denies it and says he only desires to go back and get rest. Simon tells him that the magical society took notice of him. Jamie says that his son Lennon seemed to have quite a talent for magic. He may turn out to be decent if gets training from his father. He may have potential to be as powerful as Simon someday, but cannot blossom under all this pressure. Both of his sons have taken the wrong path because he belittled them for their lack of talent. Then Jamie says his goodbye and departs. After his departure, Simon thinks about his words and says those are bittersweet. After coming back, he goes to meet Azard and Riza. He is being told that the Order of Zenith has been showing generosity by conducting charity work in various parts of Heist. They won the hearts of people by giving food to the hungry and providing shelter to the homeless, and it is said they recently started operating an orphanage as well. After Earl Welton completely obliterated the criminal gang Reborn 2 months ago, the followers of Zenith began propagating their faith. Faith in Zenith is regarded as the most merciful and respectable religion in all of Heist at the moment. Jamie says they must be devising a scheme behind all those good deeds to find out what they are up to. On the other side, the orphanage is established and run by Ricky by the Order of Zenith. Ricky gets appreciation for running it well. Since Ricky has been accepted into the orphanage about a month and a half ago, his life has been full of happiness. His little sister, Anna, is sightless. He did everything to protect her, but no one cared enough, so one day they were shown kindness by someone and he brought them to an orphanage where they are given new life. The next morning, when Jamie reaches the dining table, he sees a guest with yellow-colored hair who is paying his gratitude to the Earl as he would have died on the streets if the guards of the Earl wouldn't have picked him up. Jamie doesn't like the frankness between that guy and his parents and says he is getting on his nerves now. That person tells Earl that he is Lars Armedic, who serves Pero, the goddess of forgiveness and punishment. Sir Bell says it is surprising indeed and tells him that she belongs to the Bell household. Lars stands up and kneels down in front of her and says it's an honor to have met her. When Earl inquires him about his reason for arriving here, he says he was simply tracing the footsteps of someone that conducts horrendous and inhumane experiments that are forbidden and ended up here. He is a chimera maker. A chimera, by definition, is a being artificially created by combining the strengths of many different creatures. Earl asks him who is he that dares to come here. Lars says this is top secret and he cannot share the details with anyone except those that promise to assist. Earl says although it is difficult for him to fully commit anything, however, considering the relationship between his wife's household and the Order of Faith in Pero, he cannot just let it aside. Then Lars becomes so happy to know that he would get help from Earl. When Jamie asks about relationships between Mother's household and the Paladin guy's order, she says her granddaddy happens to have a benefactor of the Order of the Faith in Pero. She further tells there was a time when a very important treasure of the Order of the Faith in Pero was stolen and Mommy's granddaddy helped recover the item. When he died, the Order of the Faith in Pero ordained Marquis Bell as an honorary archbishop and took an oath to serve anyone in the Bell household as a bishop or higher-ranking priest for the next 100 years. Jamie feels sadness in her behavior. On the other side, Shino is chosen by Zenith and is finally heading to the headquarters. Many people come to say him goodbye. He becomes happy when he sees Ricky and Anna also arrive there. Ricky says he is also coming there soon, so don't go crying in the corner out of loneliness. Then Shino starts his journey with a man of Zenith. After covering some distance, that person says they have reached their destination and says Shino to follow. They reached a basement where Bishop welcomes them. Shino says this is a creepy place and he has to go to headquarters, but Bishop takes him inside, where a man appreciates him and says he got such a fine specimen for the experiment, he will make a very good chimera. The next day, when Lars is visiting various places in Heist along with Jamie, he says there is a place they didn't check out yet. That is the Heist chapter of the Order of the Faith in Zenith. When they reach there, they see Ricky who rushes towards them, but suddenly a horse carriage appears from the side and attacks Ricky. Jamie saves his life, so he says thanks to him. Lars thinks the spell Jamie cast to save Ricky is that of a mage far more powerful than the ones he has traveled with. He is surprised that Jamie has this much magical prowess at such a young age and believes he certainly is a prodigy in a few years. Jamie asks him to come out of his daydreams and go inside the building. They enter orphanage with Ricky, who introduces them to the Servant of Pero. When the Servant of Pero asks about their reason for arrival, Lars' voice says they had heard the Order of the Faith in Zenith was established in this region this year, and they wanted to check it out. Then they visit the orphanage with Ricky. He also introduces them to Anna, his sister. Jamie becomes shocked to see her, as her entire body is teeming with vicarial powers, especially around her two eyes. This girl Anna, although she is sightless now due to its overwhelming nature, once she awakens the saintly powers, will be able to see even the invisible through the eyes of a god. There's a high chance she will become an annoying adversary in the future. He wishes to kill her, but also thinks a high-ranking priest of the Order is probably already aware of her potential, so it may not be wise to kill her right away. After visiting the building, Ricky escorted them to the entrance. He also tells them his friend left for headquarters last night after being chosen. Jamie flashed back memories and asks him different questions, when Ricky tells him he was doing chores and running errands at Reborn. Jamie becomes aware of the dirty plan of Zenith. While leaving, they also meet Bishop, who just arrives there and offers his apologies for being unavailable. When they come out, Jamie tells Lars about what Ricky has told about his friend. Lars laughed and says Jamie seems like a kind-hearted kid. He will surely make a good priest. Jamie explains to him about gang activities. Jamie tells 2 months ago, his father annihilated a criminal gang called Reborn for conducting human trafficking operations on young children, and Ricky also told him he was in Reborn before being accepted to the orphanage. When they arrive home, Lars tells Earl that he didn't know a connection between Reborn and the Order of the Faith in Zenith. Earl says he gave them the freedom to propagate their faith since they have been having a positive influence on the people. Lars says he sensed strong vicarial powers from a man who was behind Bishop, but could not identify from which god his divine power came. Earl says he can sit idly if that is true. He also arranges 3 nights for Lars to investigate further. These knights have been operating in the shadows to protect the Welton household for a long time. They are all well versed in the art of battle. Lars says their movements and aura resemble those of assassins, although they wield long swords. On the other side, Jamie also plans to make some preparations as he will need to cast higher rank spells in the upcoming battles. Azard and Riza are waiting for some suspicious movements to occur. Then suddenly, they are attacked by a vicarial power. They dodge this attack. Azard runs to inform Master Jamie, and soon Jamie arrives there. Jamie uses various spells to kill that person with vicarious powers. He uses a soul bomb spell that creates a large explosion by detonating the souls that have been summoned. Vicarial powers start deteriorating. Jamie says it's a high-level spirited chimera, so he uses a marionette spell that attaches spiritual strings to the enemy to take full control of its movements. He says he placed the debris from the detonated souls in various parts of Chimera's body, so his body is fully under Jamie's control now. Finally, he uses a death bomb spell that causes a deadly explosion that even crushes through the armor, so it got away and falls down. Riza again becomes amazed at Jamie's powers and says it cannot be alright when the enemy got away. But Jamie says once the dark mana is embedded in one's body, it doesn't easily dissipate. When he pierced his flesh with the hand of darkness, the dark mana penetrated the deepest parts of its body, which means he can track him down whenever he wishes to.
On the other side, when Bishop comes to know someone destroyed the pinnacle of experiments, the Chimera Paladin with divine powers, he becomes furious. Bishop says who can have destroyed a high-level Chimera Paladin created by combining 4 different creatures. Just for a moment, he thinks it may be Earl Welton, but then says if it was Earl Welton, this core part would not have escaped like this. Thinking about Jamie, he says it can't be. He's a prodigy, but he's still just a rank 4 mage. One needs the power of rank 5 spells at least to take on the Chimera Paladin. On the other side, Jamie brings the body of Chimera, which is prepared by using vicarial powers. When he examines the body, he finds that the body is well crafted, the legs are made of an insect while internal organs with resistance to fire, compound eyes of a bud, and the human body are used as the base. A combination of these 4 creatures gave it magic resistance as well as the enormous speed at which it escaped. He says whatever the reason behind its creation, it's utterly disgusting. Nothing has changed after all these years. These scoundrels still treat humans as nothing more than dispensable tools. Bishop tells his companion about the whole incident and says the nucleus of the chimera is unharmed, thankfully. So he would carry on his experiment with a new ingredient, which is a faithful servant of Zenith and the only blood relative of the saint. His name is Ricky. The next day, Bishop comes to an orphanage and gathers everyone at place and says he brings wonderful news to the congregation today. God has given yet another divine message. Lord Zenith has chosen another one of the children to be a devout priest, and this time Ricky has been chosen by Lord. On the other side, Searbell says to Jamie that the rain seems to be dying down and the sun will come up soon. A servant knocks on the door and says a peasant kid has come claiming to be a friend of Jamie and wants to meet him. Jamie says to send him inside. When Ricky comes, Seer Belle becomes happy to see a friend of Jamie. Then she goes out, leaving them alone for discussion. Ricky tells him he received a call and will be departing heist soon, so he comes to say goodbye. Jamie becomes shocked to hear it. Ricky also sees Lars there and tells him also. This made Lars surprised, and he thinks that this is how they have been deceiving the orphans. Then he wishes good luck to Ricky and hopes he will become a good priest. After he is gone, Jamie says to Lars they will go after the carriage Ricky gets on. The next morning, Ricky says goodbye to everyone and hugs Anna, and says the brothers and sisters are here to help her, so stay healthy and eat well. When he starts his journey, his horse carriage is followed by Jamie and Lars. There are 3 requirements to create a chimera using vicarial power. First, the victim to be used as the ingredient. Next, the chimera maker that will conduct the experiment. And lastly, a high-ranking priest to bestow the vicarial power. Jamie says there is only one high-ranking priest in the area, and that is the Bishop of Zenith. He leaves Lars and the knights to take off to lab on their own, and he goes to meet a bishop. When Bishop takes Ricky inside the building, Jamie interrupts them. Bishop says he will teach him a lesson for interfering with God's work. The battle sanctuary cast by a bishop would grant him enough power to crush boulders with bare hands. Bishop says he will shatter Jamie into pieces. They fight with each other. Jamie says the sanctuary is being consumed by darkness, and now Bishop is helpless. Soon he falls. Jamie asks him to answer questions, but he refuses. So Jamie examines his brain. On the other side, a man who was waiting for Bishop for a long time asks his servant Lincoln to look for him. Lars, along with 3 knights, come to the lab through a secret entrance, and there they see a lot of books. There, a jackpot hit them. Lars says it's a chimera. When Bishop tells Jamie everything about its work, Jamie asks him to go to the Earl's place at once and report what he just said. He rather comes to his master and tells him he got attacked by an intruder. It took him some time to finish him off. He further tells it was the same scum that destroyed the chimera paladin, as he was too powerful to capture alive. Then he hands over the nucleus, which is the core part and contains the divine power, to the person who injected it into the body of Ricky to create the most powerful chimera. While on the other side, Lars and the knights defeated many beasts that came on their way. But the last one is far stronger than the ones before. One knight says he will grab the attention of the beast while they all should get out of there. When Lars refuses to go out, leaving him alone behind, the knight says they sometimes do undesirable things to bring out the best results in favor of the Weltons. They clear out anything that interferes with the master's will, including their own lives. Beast captures one of the knights. Other says Lars to get out of there, but he doesn't become aggrieved for leaving them behind like this, so he attacks the beast to rescue the knight from his captivity. Lars had to release the power of the divine executor. The 7 outstanding paladins were bestowed with special powers by Pyrrho, the goddess of forgiveness and punishment. Although there are severe drawbacks to using this power, while it is in effect, the paladins can command enormous divine power. Finally, the knight came back to life. Lars says that once the power of the executor deactivates, he will be partially inflicted by the damages they have received, as such drawbacks are his consequences to bear. He asks them to move ahead. Jamie interferes with his experiment on Lincoln, who becomes furious and attacks him. Jamie dodges his attack and takes him out of the place and uses his magical spell on him, and says after some time he will become his servant. Lars says to the knights they have only 20 minutes to find the boy. After that, the power will expire, so they must find Ricky before the divine power of the executor subsides. While moving forward, they confront another chimera, who is the hybrid of a demon horse and an ogre. When Ricky comes back to his sense, he gets up and calls for help. There he sees the body of Shino, confined inside a glass box, and then understands that they were supposed to be used in some kind of awful experiment. He says there is no time for grief and decides to get out of there as soon as possible. Before leaving, he says sorry to Shino and promises to come back for him. When he runs, he sees Lars looking for him. He becomes so happy to see him here, but suddenly a chimera attacks him from back. Lars orders the knight to save Ricky from attack. When they save Ricky, Lars says him to go upstairs alone, as he cannot fight while protecting him as well. Ricky becomes agree and says he will be waiting for him there. Then Ricky comes out of that place. There he heard some noise. He moves towards it. There he sees Jamie fighting with another monster, Lincoln. Jamie casts a dark magic spell, Doppelganger. This spell creates a clone that uses the same abilities as the caster, with one drawback: either the clone or the caster disappears the moment they make eye contact with each other. Jamie says to Lincoln that the reason for his failure is that he failed to realize how powerful the adversary he's going up against is. As a result, his body starts decaying. Jamie says a normal person would probably have had a cardiac arrest from the pain by now, but those experiments that he has done with his body are what prolong his suffering. Then he consumes all of his knowledge by holding his hand over his head. There come a few more chimeras. Jamie says he has spent much of his mana in a previous fight. He is surrounded by chimeras on all sides. Ricky gets more nauseous as he gets closer, and he says he is getting the feeling that he needs to be there. While fighting, Jamie feels he doesn't have enough mana to cast a barrier and won't be able to dodge the next attack. When he falls, Ricky arrives there. Jamie stops him from coming there, but he says his body moved on its own. Ricky couldn't bear the spell created by Lincoln and fainted. When Jamie mourns over it, Lincoln says pathetic creatures care for each other. This is the quiet scene. Lincoln then says the aura surrounding Jamie feels different all of a sudden, and this feels dangerous. Jamie uses the first ever special power he ever mastered and calls the Army of the Dead, an army created of unnatural causes to stand against the 12 gods. Lincoln says he can't be defeated by these creatures. Jamie says this is his field on which the dead harvest death. The Gem of Life spells out of Ricky's mouth. The Gem of Life is a magical artifact that grants self-healing power to its owner. Lincoln is shocked and says no wonder this fool wouldn't die after all those attacks. Then blood comes out of Jamie's mouth. He says it's taking a toll on his body. The power of unnatural causes has too many drawbacks at the moment, but he says he can't let Ricky die like this. So he picks up his body. He sees a lady comes who takes Ricky and asks Jamie who is he who dares to attempt to take what is rightfully hers. Lars says Hank's goodness they were able to dispatch the beasts before he ran out of time. The knight asks him if he is alright as he seems hurt. While on the other side, Jamie thinks about who summoned this fool. Even if this is only a vision, she must have paid a heavy price for this. He says the vicarious powers that surround Ricky were that of hers. She tells him that Ricky is on his path to becoming her apostle. The apostles are the closest one to the God they serve. Their very existence grants them a similar status to that of the Pope and the power to crush all evil before them, as the strongest paladin. Jamie says there can only be one apostle serving one god at a time, and he heard it takes a long time to find a new one after one perishes. He further tells her that he has no intentions of killing Ricky. He is a friend of him after all. There is no need for apostles in this world at this moment, as this is a peaceful era in which the wills of the 12 gods are being fulfilled left and right. She hands over Ricky to him and goes back. Ricky asks what happened to his own body. Jamie says he turned him into an undead with the power of his dark magic. In the Order of Faith in Zenith Heiss's chapter, Earl Argano comes along with Lars. The servant of the Order of Faith says they are the arbiters that serve the Order of the Faith in Zenith. He apologizes that they are unable to reveal their names given the missions they are assigned with. He tells they had been chasing after heretics at the command of the Order, and Bishop Lincoln was a heretic. They were simply bringing punishment to the one that committed a grave offense within their order, he adds. The era says he is the one that makes decisions within his land. No one else harms another person without his approval in Heiss. As they have crossed their limits, he orders them to leave Heiss immediately. Lars says he is ruthlessly clever. He didn't even bring up the chimera issue. He simply emphasized his rights as the lord of his estate rather than theories that are difficult to prove. The servant of Order of Faith in Zenith requests Earl to reconsider his words, but Ear says he will not go back on his words as they have lost his trust. After some time, the Order of Faith in Zenith paid a huge sum of money as compensation and left the area. Lars comes to see Ricky and Anna and says he will have the honor of escorting both of them to Apton. While enjoying tea time with mother and sister, Jamie wishes to visit mother's family in Apton. He expresses his love for his mother when she says they were already scheduled to travel to Apton next week. Lars comes there and tells Jamie that Ricky and Anna will be leaving with him to Apton. He further says Ricky and Anna will never forget about him and their friendship will never die. Then Lars hugs him and goes back.
Thank you, friends, for joining us on this exciting adventure in the world of Manhwa in today's Manhwa recap. So don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on every exciting episode.